Hello, hello. Welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. Um, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I started as if I'm going to kick it off, and as if people are not going to notice that I haven't been recording as frequently as I would like. But it is what it is. I mean, it's not like I don't have much to say. It's not like I don't have an opinion on so many things going on around me. But time and energy and the perfect um, combination of both. कभी एनर्जी होती है तो टाइम नहीं होता, कभी टाइम होता है तो एनर्जी नहीं होती. तो just it's been a struggle, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I want to really spend some time talking about what I want to talk about. um I mean, judging by what has been going on around the world, I mean, it's not rocket science for me to really um, put too much attention on that. Um, but there was an interesting aspect of what I've been feeling, you know, about what's been going on around the world, especially around the happenings in the Middle East and what's now escalating into Lebanon um, and Iran and Syria, all of these countries around. So it always reminds me of a conversation that I had with someone that I know about doing the right thing versus um, winning. And if you dig that deeper, you think about in the context of states, right? Okay, as a state, should you be doing the right thing or should you be thinking about winning? And then when we really dig deeper into what winning means is doing what's best for the country, doing what's best for you, I guess. If it's best for the country, it should be best for you as a statesman. um but how do you balance that with you know the moral quagmire that you you know face every now and then as world leaders? And I had a conversation about this, and this was the conclusion of that. I mean, it wasn't a conclusion, but the argument that I was facing at the time was, this other person said that and I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to do any commentary on what this person said, but specifically, at least. So this person said that Pakistan should mend its relationships with everybody, including Israel, and we have nothing to do with that. What's going on over there? We're not even close, and we should be friends, and therefore, it's going to help us grow Pakistan. Grow economically. We'll be closer. All of that stuff, and these arguments have been made various times. It's not just in the context of Pakistan. I'm pretty sure people in the Gulf region are thinking about these things because they are obviously were, at least before October 7th last year, were exploring the possibility of doing that. So um, obviously that falls under the category of doing, winning to do what's best for your country and economically, socially. But then on the other side is doing the right thing. Not all the time those two things will be synonymous. If anything, I think probably most of the times they won't be synonymous because we also expect our leaders um, to take difficult decisions, unpopular decisions, and by default, if it's an unpopular decision, that means that the population at large does not agree with it. And if they don't agree with it, that means that they think that it is not good, or it is not in their best interest what the ruler is doing. Therefore, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have a leader that takes unpopular decisions, which is, if you ask a definition, okay, leader ki kya definition hai? Political leader ki, political head of the state ki kya definition? And one of the characteristics that they would mention is that, this leader should not be afraid of taking um, difficult decisions or making unpopular calls, But you can't have that um, if you expect them to only do what's good for the country and um, try and get the sustainability or the livelihood or the economy of the state to a place where you know uh, it is good and it is sustainable and it's also reaping its rewards, um, uh, giving the fruits of his rewards to the people of the state. So in that context, I was thinking about Kyar, why does Lebanon, why does Iran, why does um you know I'll reluctantly include the GCC here, the Gulf states, because at least on paper, on paper they are not firmly in the Israel camp, right? But God knows what's going on behind the scenes. But let's just assume for the um, what we see, at least on paper, um, that these countries, and I'll include Pakistan in this, why should these countries be making these moral calls when it serves the country no purpose? It actually puts them back. I mean, let's use Iran as an example. The agitation, the aggression that they have with the West and the NATO, countries, or the United States and Israel and the UK and France and Germany, all of these countries that it has opened, it's has open aggression towards. What purpose does it serve to the country? And you would hear someone, if you know who follows the states, who supports the state of Iran, would say that standing up for what's right is morally required, and it is a character of the state that it does come through in times of moral crises. So you know and it's very easy for Iran, for example, back in the 60s, before that, even before the government of the Shah was toppled, um, and the revolution came about. Everyone in at least the Western circle was happy with Iran, although one might argue कि जो animosity थी, और जो एक समझ लो कि एक aggression था, एक you know guerrilla warfare type situation that still existed in the Middle East, specifically around in the context of Israel. But let's put that aside for a second and think, the common denominator here is that since Iran started to say certain things and had certain stances, or these organizations or political powers, like I would reluctantly include PTI in here, and I know people will have some issues with reluctantly including them. People will be like, oh, wholeheartedly include them in this conversation because they're seen as anti-American, therefore that's why they're not in power. But Hezbollah and Iran, all of that stuff, these political forces, what they have in common is their need to be above what um, is given to them, or the cards that are dealt to them, which is basically that, hey, you just fall in line with the powers that be, and we will tell you what to do. So, and if to whatever extent these countries and these organizations and these political powers um, don't fall in line, that puts their people in, at a massive disadvantage, and therefore they have to go through, sanctions and wars, and being dissed in the mainstream media, and nobody, they're declared terrorists, nobody likes them. So what's the point then? We're not winning, and I've described winning, at the start of the podcast. So we're not winning. Then what is the point of doing the right thing if you're not winning? So that creates the question that, is winning important, or is doing the right thing important? And as you know, I mean, going by, the numerous podcasts I've done, my way of thinking is more along the lines of like, what kind of principle that we can get out of a certain crises that is going on in the current affairs, and then have a discussion around that. That way, this conversation that I'm having, or monologue, whatever you want to call it, um, stands the test of time, where people can still listen to it without being in the through the lens of a certain event. So it is a good question, and I will try and put into words what I was thinking and how I've been thinking about this, and if I have reached a conclusion. um let's first address the idea of, what is the responsibility of the state. And I understood this again in my own head. I didn't do any research, or I didn't go and talk to like the experts and whatever. That's why this podcast is a safe place. um what is the responsibility of a state? And in order for me to understand that, I, dumbed it down, or reduced the responsibility of the state by comparing it to the responsibility of the head of the family. In this regards, in my family, I am the head of the family, and what are my responsibilities, right? So how would I describe what my responsibilities are? My responsibility is to be the breadwinner, to provide the best life that I can for my family, to instill good values and principles as much as I can, um, and be a reliable, integral, a person with integrity, for my family to look up to and rely on. So I think, more or less, अगर आप इसको extrapolate करेंगे, if you extrapolate this to the responsibility of the head of the state, and and the state in general, you will realize that, I'm sorry, you guys are seeing like this spotlight kind of effect going on, but you can't help it. This is just natural light, and I'm too lazy to, you know. Anyway, you're listening to me anyways. You're not probably watching. Um, so the responsibility of a state is somewhat an extrapolation of what the responsibility of a head of the family is, or would be, इसी को आप extrapolate करके you will reach probably a conclusion कि yeah, this sounds about right, what the responsibility of a state would be, um, as compared to what the responsibility of a family, head of the family, would be. So when you look at these countries and these governments and these organizations and these political powers through the lens of what their responsibilities are, you might argue to say, okay, their actions or their stance, is that good for the entire country? Is having the stance to, stand up against injustice, even, albeit partially, because one might argue that they're not holistically standing up against, injustice, because there's certain cases in the world they might turn a blind eye and not really emphasize injustice as they would, or as they are doing on the other side. But that's beyond the point. Maybe we'll discuss that some other time. But assuming that's not the case, people might say that कि प्रिंसिपल्स के लिए एंड दिस गुड वैल्यूज के लिए खड़े होके आपने क्या अचीव कर लिया, बिकॉज योर इकोनॉमी इज डाउन द डंप्स, your people aren't happy, nobody likes you in the world. So what are you like, what game are you playing, what you know what is such a big problem in just accepting Israel as a legitimate state and forget about what's going on, in Gaza and in and around Palestine, and just move on with your lives, and just we'll all live happily ever after. So, as I mentioned when I was talking about the responsibility of a head of the family, one of the things that I said is to instill good morals and values. I feel like that is still a responsibility of the state as well. Now, shoving it down everyone's throat, maybe not, but showing the light, or at least doing things that, again, might be unpopular. People might say, okay, hey, we don't have to go into these valleys because these are going to be disadvantageous to the country as a whole. Therefore, you should not be standing up to injustice. You should not be doing this or that. Let's just stick and be quote unquote neutral. Um, I did a podcast on cult of neutrality. No pun intended. No um, similarities were intended towards CM Punk. But anyway, I digress. So, why can't we just stay neutral and just do what's best for us? You know what I mean? So, I sort of disagree with that because I think, okay, again, I go back to the unpopular opinion. It might be unpopular for the heads of states to take that decision where they say, okay, you know what, this is our stance when it comes to injustice. This is our stance when it comes to doing the right thing. And if that means economic sanctions, I'm sorry, that's just what it is. And that goes back to the argument of like, why should I be foregoing economic pos- uh, um, prosperity for doing the right thing? Why should I be doing that? Like, what good? Like, what brownie points am I going to get? Not maybe not immediately in the world, but then as a head of state, there are certain things I feel like are just beyond what the good and the bad are on any immediate day. So you have to take those decisions into consideration. And then also, one thing is outright declaring war and just being the aggressor in any situation. For example, if I see um, um, something's going on with a neighbor, for example, if a neighbor is in trouble and I can see that the neighbor is in trouble, or some random person is in trouble, for that matter, it doesn't have to be a neighbor. And I can do a few things. I can either look at it and say, that is wrong. If someone's being deprived of their rights, I would say that is wrong. Try and help them in a manner that is appropriate. And, again, that's a loaded fucking word, appropriate. And I'm not going to get into it because that just starts a whole new debate about like what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Or at the very least, I would at least think, yeah, that's wrong. Keep it to me. My thoughts are going to stick with me, and I'm just going to say this is a hadith as well, but I'm paraphrasing, of course. Um, so if that is happening, and I am saying that that is wrong, which some of these organizations might be saying, um, that should not be a difficult decision. That should not be a place where the system punishes me and puts me under economic sanctions or isolations. And then my people start whining about it, and other people start whining and complaining about it. They should be whining and complaining about the system that enables the fact that it is empowering for you to not say anything, and it encourages you to turn a blind eye, because and actually not encourage it rewards you if you turn a blind eye, and it absolutely punishes you to an extent where you don't where you cease to exist, where the quote unquote to a famous quote from an American, that they bomb you back to the um, Stone Ages. So, why is that the cost of me just saying that that is wrong? And in saying that is wrong, why is that? Why am I foregoing economic prosperity? That is the question. The question should not be okay, why are you doing this? Because of that, you're losing economic prosperity. I turn it back on them and say, why does it have to be that way? Me doing something, which is just calling something out and saying, doing social commentary and saying, that is not cool, what's going on. I oppose it. I vehemently oppose it. I'm against it. And that somehow is convoluted into being the aggressor. And then as a result of that, I am losing my economic prosperity. I am being isolated. I am being shut down just because of that. And then, God forbid, if you try and resist, that's that leaves you in a completely different level. So the question is not that, okay, you're losing so much economic prosperity. You're losing so much just by doing the quote unquote right thing. Why are you doing that? Just shut up and dribble. Um, so I respond to it by saying that why is who created that rule? Why who are we to stick to that rule, and why are we accepting that as a rule? That should be the right. That should be the real question. Then why are these countries? Why are these organizations? Why are people losing their right to say something, their right to commentary, their right to free speech? Um, just because the rules are such. So therefore, in order to strictly play by the rules, you should not say anything. I don't understand that. I don't buy into that philosophy. Though that kind of like gives you an indication of what I'm thinking, right, about this whole comparison between doing the right thing versus winning. And I feel like doing the right thing is winning. Yeah, you might not be considered cool. Yeah, you might be shut down. Yeah, you might be going through hardships, but the real victory is doing the right thing at the right time, and having history and having future generations judge you that, yeah, these guys, they stuck through it. Like Nelson Mandela, he could have shook hands with the apartheid government in South Africa and caused everything to go away, and you'd be like, you know what, we'll be subjugated, we'll live like animals, second grade citizens in South Africa, but at least I don't have to fucking go to jail. At least my people will not be arrested, or I don't have to like fucking sit in jail for 27 years. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to shake hands and be over with, and let's just get this life done so I can just, whatever, Um, and trust me, people thought about that at the time. I know there are several articles at the time when Martin Luther King in this country was campaigning for equal rights for African Americans, and he was considered that he's shaking the boat. He's the aggressor, he is a terrorist. And future generations judge him now as a saint, almost a hero to millions and millions. So do you want to be in this position? Do you want to be in a position where you're uh, a Martin Luther King, um, or a Joe Biden right now, or a Harris, where history is not going to be kind to them? They're not gonna be like like Bush. um they're not going to be kind on them. Blair, the history isn't kind on him. um Even Saddam, for that matter, history isn't kind on them, on him. So doing the right thing gets you brownie points, just not probably on the day, because of the fucking rules that the powers that be have created. So I suggest changing those rules where you get recognition for doing the right thing, and you're not punished for doing the right thing. You are rewarded for doing the right thing, and hence you win, because that is winning. Not doing the right thing can never be equated to winning, in my opinion. So I started with the question that is it important to do the right thing or to win? And the answer, I think I've pretty much been, nailing and hammering it down to your head. If you're listening, um, that is to do the right thing. That is winning. Anyway, rant over. Subscribe to the channel if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or any of the podcast hosting platforms. Rate us, leave us a rating, you know, leave us your comments. And yeah, I'll try and do more of this. I'll try. No promises, but I'll try. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.